Something looks different. Hold on. Cool. Looks like we're good. What? That doesn't make any sense. That is weird. Hold on. No, I think we're good. Hey, what's up? We are here. Here we are. Very late. A lot going on the last couple days. Haven't been on. I was working on projects, and after I finished up the sauce, I went to. I not rushed, but I was quick to share my comments about a particular product that's coming out because I think it might. At first, I was just excited about it, thinking it would be, oh, this sounds like great, and then I started looking into it and accidentally found some really bad stuff about it, and it's called Ferula Max. That's the name of the product, and it is a Ferula hormonus root extract. So I went down the investigatory road just to see what it was, what the claims have been in the past, and come to find out it's very, very, very bad for you. And so I had to make a video, consumer safety warning type of video. And you can find that, not that, this right here, actually. That's actually the video right there. I'm going to go ahead and show you. So on YouTube, and it's in the description of the video, if you want to click on it, you should follow this channel. It is Fitwit at Wisdom Fitness AZ. And that's the video right there. They made me... I gave a picture that I put this all together, that thumbnail, and then I just had it run through the sprucing up process through ChatGPT, and they made me look like, what's his name? Jeff Cavalier. It's kind of funny. So the other one that they gave me looks even more like Jeff Cavalier, so I went with the one that looked less like Jeff Cavalier from Athlete X. I like Athlete X. I don't agree with everything that anybody says, but I like it. It's good info. So we're going to get into greatest assets tonight. We're going to talk about Béchamp in the book by Ethel Hume called Béchamp or Pasteur. So let's stand by for that here. That's not what I'm looking for. What am I looking for? Gotta have a good intro. I don't think it's on this one. It must be over here. Yeah.
The ancient art of ball blasting, widely accepted by archaeologists as the first discipline of martial arts, its roots trace back to the genesis of our species and to the very beginning of time itself, and it is still practiced to this day by Shaolin monks and those that just want to smash their nuts with 2x4s. Bruce Lee famously once said, "Fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks one time. Fear the man that has clobbered his wiener 10,000 times." Here you can see one of the many connoisseurs of titanium testicle training preparing what's known in the business as Thomas the Testicle Tank Torpedo. It was invented by Alexander Graham Bell during the early 1900s with the sole purpose of strengthening a male's bag of man mangoes. I know many of you are thinking of making a Duke Nukem Balls of Steel joke, but save it. These men have heard it 100 times. There's no trick photography here, no smoke and mirrors. This is real shit. He is actually getting his penis titties clobbered right now by this fucking medieval contraption. Modern science can't explain how they're able to pull off this superhuman feat, so your guess is as good as any. Maybe they suck their nuts up to their nipples to avoid the impact. Maybe they inject their testicles with iron. Or maybe Facebook soccer mom Ruth Pattyvases is onto something when she says aliens replaced their original testicles with stronger testicles. No one knows for sure. All I can say is that this is what I imagine Comcast's employees do daily. Regardless of the explanation, the fact remains that this discipline of martial arts will make you go nuts. That's another joke I'm sure these martial artists have heard before. I'm sure they're used to having their balls busted. I can't do it towards my webcam or my balls will fly out.
Oh yeah, you couldn't hear anything I said. Oops. This is a demonstration of what it feels like and what happens to your testicles on Ferula Max. Yep, right about there. Hey, it's even like the box Ferula Max. Yellow just like the box. There you go. Yep. Unfortunately, that would have been a good thing, but phytoestrogens to scare your body into thinking that, well, knowing basically, but also mimicking because it goes after the same estrogen receptors. So your body thinks it's being flooded with estrogen, so it freaks out. Your brain, your pituitary gland, I think the hypothalamus, and your testes all freak out, and then do like a data dump, right? Your brain says, release the hounds. And in this case, the hounds are as much testosterone as your body can produce to try to counterbalance the influx from the ferrutinin in the ferula hormonis. So you can only do that so many times, and why would you do it that way anyway? Now, it's one thing if it's an estrogen-like, as in it's not really, it's a phytoestrogen, then that would mean it's not actually doing things in your body like estrogen would, but because it attacks the same, let's just go with it for now, receptors that the A and the B estrogen receptors, alpha and beta, that regardless, it's forcing your body to do a big, huge dump, and then it thinks that it's failed because that stuff has saturated the receptors, and then you no longer produce any sex hormones ever. It's permanent damage, and your testes atrophy, and they go into cytosis, which is cell death, and programmed cell death. So not good things, because it just means that more and more damage is going to occur over time. And I can only imagine that would set you up as well without the sex hormones and the signaling to your testes constantly. The body's tissue in that area dies, and that would possibly also cause maybe testicular cancer over time. There's not enough studies to say what's what, but of all the types of ferula that he could have picked, the hormonis was probably the worst. So hopefully that video gets seen by people so they don't all get basically chemically castrated. It's kind of funny that it's called hormonis, right? Hormonis as in Mount Hermon. Yeah, same area, and it just so happens to be something that could potentially end someone's prospects for being a father or a mother. Fucks up your ovaries too. How convenient that would be a thing. And on Mount Hermon, where the quote-unquote watchers allegedly were. It's all very strange how that matrix works. Anyway. Hey, Inward Snowman. Aloha, Snack Barb. Oh, yeah, I was muted there earlier, yeah. I forgot. I didn't slide it up. That's why I gotta have these things on, because I can't tell. Anyhow. Yeah, that's funny. That's good. I like the fist thing there. That's funny. And Irvat's in the house too, and Cool Frog. And Karen. What's up, Karen? Everybody's up late with me. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a day. It's been a weekend, and just stuff, you know. But yeah, we're here. So let's do it. I'm just gonna change out the viewing screen here so you can actually see what I'm reading. And I don't think I've even really been looking at internet stuff lately, so I can't confidently. Whoops. There we go. I can't confidently say that there's anything pressing or pending that I'm aware of that needs to be discussed before we get into this. As far as Instagram stuff or anything, I haven't really looked at it. One day alone, 12 hours, I was on this computer editing that video that I just talked about. And that's after doing it the day before. So I had to record it, and I recorded sections, and then things crashed because I was messing around my BIOS a little bit trying to optimize it, and it didn't like that too much, so I had to readjust it. And So those crashes made broken files, but then I saw this thing called I found this thing called untrunk, so I was able to salvage those files. Then it was a matter of me having to edit and then add fun stuff to it, go find the stuff because I had a thought or idea. Oh, this would be funny here. So I got to find the picture or the video, clip it, so, download it, clip it just right, and put it into the timeline. And that just when you don't have all the stuff like in a clip file already, and you're building it, that takes a long time. All right, so I'm just going up here to show you the cover. There it is, Béchamp or Pasteur. A lost chapter in The History of Biology by Ethel Hume. And don't care about that. Scroll down from here. Let's look at the. No, let's go at this. I think we've done that. We'll read the Antoine Béchamp. Virchow is one of the people who pushed the germ theory virus lie bullshit. So I really don't want to get into that guy. He was a Masonic mofo, and I think it was a military field doctor or something like that. So I'll read it. It's whatever. If I could live my life over again, I would devote it to proving that germs seek their natural habitat, diseased tissue, rather than being the cause of the diseased tissue. Okay. All right. Well, unfortunately, science went on a different trajectory because Rothschilds, and they don't really like humans. Nothing is lost. Nothing is created. All is transformed. Nothing is the prey of death. All is the prey of life. That is a beautiful statement, Mr. Antoine Béchamp. Puts things in a very positive perspective. It's like, instead of saying life will find a way, it's like, no, life is the way. Yeah. The specific disease doctrine in the grand refuge of weak, uncultured, unstable minds. I was laughing at the unstable part. Such as now rule in the medical profession. Oh, sorry. The specific disease doctrine is the grand refuge. Okay. There are no specific diseases. That's what Dr. Glidden says. These are just names for describing a set of symptoms so that they can categorize it all across the board. And instead of looking at the individual and their unique symptoms, there's a cluster of symptoms and then there's unique ones. And those tell the story and are the key to finding the proper homeopathic remedy. When you say, oh, everybody has this because they checked X amount of boxes and that's what we're calling it this time. And we made a drug that says, hey, this drug does this thing for that stuff. It's such a ridiculous, unscientific way to go about things. So there's no specific diseases. There are specific disease conditions, which would mean environment as well, right? Like you're in a cesspool of human filth and waste product. Chances are you're going to get a little sick. Pasteur. Book 1, Pasteur, Plagiarist and Imposter by R.B. Pearson. So this is a book that they added to Ethel Hume's book. There's two separate things going on here. And the author's preface. It is a serious matter to attack the reputation. Can you guys hear me okay? My voice sounds weird in the headphones. I'm not 100% sure why. I haven't been on this. Well, I already told you those stories. So. It is a serious matter to attack the reputation of a famous man, especially one who has posed and been accepted as one of the world's greatest scientists. The reason why your children are being subjected to 79 vaccines is because of people like him. He's what do you call it? Accessory to murder. Many murders. For many years, Pasteur has been looked upon as a founder and leader in serology, like serology, right? but it is always pertinent to look into the beginnings of any subject on which there is a difference of opinion, with the hope of finding the truth in the matter. Not in the middle, but in the matter. A writer has made an effort in his prior books and pamphlets. The writer has made an effort in his prior books and pamphlets to show that the germ theory is false and that illness is practically always due to errors of diet. Oh, gee, that's funny, right? Or manner of living. The germs being present solely as scavengers of dead and waste tissues and foods, and not as the cause of the disease. They're the cleanup crew. However, the erroneous belief that germs cause disease and must be controlled or eliminated before it can be cured is so widespread as to close the minds of many people to any other ideas on the subject. It's a very convenient, poor observation that leads to all kinds of used car salesman type trickery. Merchant level lies that have consequences, like, worsening someone's health or ending their lives. For this reason, it seems that a thorough investigation of this idea, the grounds on which it is based, and even the bona fides of those who started it on its way is necessary before any sane ideas as to the proper treatment of disease can be widely promulgated. Promulgate your partner, no, it's promenade. When Ethel Douglas Hume's Béchamp or Pasteur appeared in 1923, it was too late. The Rothschilds already had it. The Rockefellers, funded by the Rothschilds, had already had us by the Canucks, the Vancouver Canucks, and they were squeezing. Oh, anyway. It seemed to be just the thing that would fill this gap. Wink, wink. And end the use of serums and other biologicals forever. But it is now 19 years since that book. Well, it's a little bit longer since this book, I guess, which should have marked an epoch in the healing arts. It's been that long since it was published that time. But 1923, we're talking over 103 years now. It did not receive the attention it deserved in medical circles, and though it is now in its second edition, the medical profession are pushing biologicals harder than ever. Harder than last time. Hence, it seems appropriate to go over the subject in order to show the truth regarding the falsity of Pasteur's ideas and claims to fame, and the fraudulent basis on which the germ theory rests, as was so well shown by Miss Hume in Béchamp or Pasteur, and to add other facts and statistics that support the idea that the germ theory is false. It is in the hopes that it may receive wider circulation and more general attention, and possibly lead to a complete overhauling of the question of the treatment of disease, especially regarding serology. And they've moved on since then to mRNA, give you a bunch of aluminum, give you a bunch of thimerosal, whatever it takes to hurt these kids good. The translations from the French and other material in chapters 2, 3, 4, and 5, not otherwise credited, are from Béchamp or Pasteur by Ethel Douglas Hume. In closing, I wish to acknowledge my indebtedness to the Reverend and Mrs. Well, we don't need to go into that. It's the same things. Prior history of the germ theory. If you explore the history of the medical profession and the various ideas regarding the cause of disease that were held by leading physicians before Pasteur first promulgated his notorious germ theory, you will find convincing evidence that Pasteur discovered nothing. Nothing. Well, obviously he discovered nothing if he's wrong. You can't discover something that's not there. That's incorrect. I discovered that I'm incorrect. But also, he plagiarized. He discovered nothing, and that he deliberately appropriated, falsified, and perverted another... He deliberately appropriated, falsified, and perverted another man's work. And who was that man? Béchamp. The germ theory, so-called long antedated Pasteur So long, in fact, that he was able to present it as new, and he got away with it. F. Harrison, principal professor of bacteriology at McDonald College, wrote a historical review of microbiology published in Microbiology. Well, it's convenient. A textbook in which he says in part, Geronimo Fracastorius, an Italian poet and physician from 1483 to 1553 of Verona, published a work that's in that language in Venice in 1546, which contained the first statement of the true nature of contagion, infection, or disease organisms, and of the modes of transmission of infectious disease. It's already assuming that's how the mechanism works as well. He divided diseases into those which infect by either immediate contact through intermediate agents or at a distance through the air. Organisms which cause disease called Seminaria contagionum, Seminaria contagionum, he supposed to be of the nature of viscous or glutinous matter, similar to the colloidal states of substances described by modern physical chemists. These particles, too small to be seen, were capable of reproduction in appropriate media and became pathogenic through the action of animal heat. Thus, Fracastorius, in the middle of the 16th century, gave us an outline of morbid processes in terms of microbiology. For a book published more than 300 years before Pasteur discovered the germ theory, this seems to be a most astonishing anticipation of Pasteur's ideas, except that, not having a microscope, Fracastorius apparently did not realize that these substances might be individual living organisms. According to Harrison, well, there's a lot of fuckery in history too, because we don't know what the heck they had and didn't have, or at least had and lost, reset wise or whatever. There's a big case to be had that our view of history is very, very much manufactured, so that we don't see the ebb and flow, the sine curve of what you maybe consider progress or modernization. So we don't see that we were at a higher level and then something happened, because then we would question what was that thing that happened and who did it, or what did it. And that would screw up all control mechanisms that make everybody think that you just march forward and you're just being pushed down the assembly line. If there's imminent danger and shit's going to go south anyway, then a lot of people wouldn't break their backs trying to prop up a system or be controlled by it. Especially if it's a system that periodically rips everything away and makes people start over again. Right? In the year 1683, Antonius van Leeuwenhoek, like Renhoek in Ren and Stimpy. Antonius van Leeuwenhoek, a Dutch naturalist and a maker of lenses, communicated to the English Royal Society, which the Royal Society was later on heavily influenced by the perfectibilistan infiltrators. Communicated to the English Royal Society the results of observations which he had made with a simple microscope of his own construction in 1683, magnifying from 100 to 150 times. He found in water, saliva, dental tartar, etc., entities he named animalcula. It's like Dracula for animals. He described what he saw, and in his drawings showed both rod-like and spiral forms, both of which he said had motility. In all probability, the two species he saw were those now recognized as Bacillus busalis, or sometimes CH when it's Italian, but that's not like CH sound with two C's, like Pucci, Tony Pucci. It could be Bacillus buccalis, maximus, and Spirillum sputagenum. Leeuwenhoek's observations were purely objective and in striking contrast with the speculative views of Plenses, a Viennese physician who in 1762 published a germ theory of infectious diseases. Plenses maintained that there was a special organism by which each infectious disease was produced, that microorganisms were capable of reproduction outside of the body, and that they might be conveyed from place to place by the air. Here is Pasteur's great thought in toto. His complete germ theory, and yet put in print over a century before Pasteur thought of it, quote unquote, thought of it, and published it as his own. Right, and if he's in that medical field, they're fully aware of everything that came before them. That's the whole point. You build upon what the foundation that someone else, you know, I mean, it's the Tower of Babel, basically, but that's a whole other misunderstood story. But, you know, one person puts their floor on in their century, then, you know, or however long it takes, generation, and then everybody sees upon that. And but they're always reflecting back or referencing the foundation as they build. Problem with that is sometimes the foundation is faulty, and the thing doesn't come crashing down if they can manipulate and manage information and skew knowledge and people's beliefs and perception of reality enough that they don't see the cracks, you know. Note how concisely it anticipates all Pasteur's ideas on germs. While there seems to be no proof that Plenses had a microscope or knew of Leeuwenhoek's animalcula, both are possible, indeed likely, as he was quite prominent, and he, rather than Pasteur, should have any credit that might come from such a discovery if the germ theory has any value. It doesn't, though, sadly. Not sadly. That means you can stop taking your vaccines and not feel guilty. Everybody, stop it. This idea, which to the people of that time at least, must have accounted easily and completely for such strange occurrences as contagion, infection, and epidemics, would have been widely discussed in the medical or scientific circles of that time and in literature available to Pasteur. Right. I believe he's also a Royal Society member, if I'm not mistaken. He was in those circles. He knew people. He knew royalty. I mean, he knew like the monarchs. That's what I'm trying to get at. He hung out with kings and shit. How do you do that? Same brotherhood? Same fraternal order, perhaps? That it was widely known is indicated by the fact that the world-famous English nurse Florence Nightingale published an attack on the idea in 1860, over 17 years before Pasteur adopted it and claimed it as his own. You know, every time I heard the name Florence Nightingale, I thought it was a freaking movie star from the 50s. Is there someone who sounds similar to that? Florence Henderson, maybe, or whatever the fuck her name is? Yeah. She said of infection. I obviously know who Florence Nightingale is for the last 8 to 10 years or whatever, but back before that, when I heard the name, I'm like, oh yeah, I probably thought of like Donna Dixon or something. I don't know. Let's see. Diseases are not individuals arranged in classes like cats and dogs, but conditions growing out of one another. That's the beginning of her statement. Just that alone. Diseases are not individuals arranged in classes. Right. But what do they have to do if they're going to give you a separate drug for each and every part of the body that they don't treat as a holistic thing? They have to categorize. So that way, you know, they can rack up. This thing goes to that. This thing goes there. This will fix that. Fix. Diseases are not individuals like cats and dogs, but conditions growing out of one another. Right. Which means if you let something break for too long or be depleted of the nutrients it needs to fix itself, then something else is going to break too, because it's degradation over time. You get one rust spot, then you get a bunch of rust spots, and then you start getting flaking of the paint that's above the rust that's coming out from it. Is it not living in a continual mistake to look upon diseases as we do now, as separate entities which must exist like cats and dogs, instead of looking upon them as conditions, like a dirty and clean condition, and just as much under our control, or rather as the reactions of a kindly nature against the conditions of which we have placed ourselves? I was brought up to believe that smallpox, for instance, was a thing of which there was once a first specimen in the world, which went on propagating itself in perpetual chain of descent, just as there was a first dog or first pair of dogs, and that smallpox would not begin itself any more than a new dog would begin without there having been a parent dog. Since then, I've seen with my own eyes and smelled with my own nose smallpox growing up in first specimens, either in closed rooms or in overcrowded wards, where it could not by any possibility have been caught, quote unquote, but must have begun, meaning it was a disease from within, presenting itself as what you see, you observe visually, which is the smallpox. So it's not something that came in and infected the person. It's something that was as a result of the person falling apart, basically. I have seen diseases begin, grow up, and turn into one another. Yeah, they said something about tuberculosis doing that too, or something. End stage might have been tuberculosis. Now, do dogs turn into cats? Nope. I mean, anything's 2026. If they want to identify as a cat, you're supposed to allow them to, and then you're also supposed to play the LARPing game with them. I have seen, for instance, with a little overcrowding, continued fever grow up, and with a little more typhoid fever, and with a little more typhus. Oh, that's interesting. Kind of like the malnutrition issue that they had in those quote-unquote death camps, as in work camps, keeping them out of trouble. So it went to typhus, eh? And all in the same ward or hut. Would it not be far better, truer, and more practical if we looked upon diseases in this light? For diseases, as all experiences show, are adjectives, not nouns, not noun substantiatives. True nursing ignores infection except to prevent it. Cleanliness and fresh air from open windows with unremitting attention to the patient are the only defense a true nurse either asks or needs. Wise and humane management of the patient is the best safeguard against infection. The greater part of nursing consists of preserving cleanliness. The specific disease doctrine is the grand refuge of weak, uncultured, unstable minds, such as now rule in the medical profession. There are no specific diseases, there are specific disease conditions, which we heard in the beginning. Here you have Florence Nightingale, the most famous nurse in history, after lifelong experience with infection, contagion, and epidemics, challenging the germ theory 17 years before Pasteur put it forward as his own discovery. Wow, that was how far back she went? Jeez. She clearly understood, and it's utter fallacy, better before, she clearly understood it and its utter fallacy better before 1860 than Pasteur did either in 1878 or later. Now, to see what a parasite Pasteur was, oh, that's funny. Good pairing there. A parasite, eh? We know a group of parasites, don't we? Now, to see what a parasite Pasteur was on men who did things, let us digress and go back a few years to the time when the study of germs was an outgrowth of the study of fermentation, which is really cool and interesting. Béchamp, Pasteur, and fermentation. About 1854, Professor Pierre-Jacques Antoine Béchamp, one of France's greatest scientists, then professor at the School of Pharmacy in the Faculty of Science at Strasbourg, later professor of medical chemistry and pharmacy at the University of Montpellier. And let's see, a member of many scientific societies and a is that Chevalier? There's a way of pronouncing it right. It's not Chevalier, but it's, you know what I mean. It's I just can't get it tonight. Of Legion of Honor, took up the study of fermentation. Chevalier, something like that. Chevalier, whatever. He had succeeded in 1852 in so reducing the cost of producing aniline as to make it a commercial success, and his formula became the basis of German dye industry. Let's see. This brought him some fame and many more problems to solve. Up to this time, the idea prevailed that cane sugar, when dissolved in water, was spontaneously transformed at an ordinary temperature into invert sugar, which is a mixture of equal parts of glucose and fructose, but an experiment with starch had caused him to doubt the truth of this idea. Therefore, in May 1854, Béchamp undertook a series of observations on this change, which came to be referred to as his beacon experiment. In this experiment, he dissolved perfectly pure cane sugar in water in a glass bottle containing air, but tightly stoppered. Several other bottles contained the same solution, but with a chemical added. In the solution without any added chemical, molds appeared in about 30 days, and inversion of the sugar in this bottle then went on rapidly, but molds and inversion did not occur in the other bottles containing added chemicals. He measured the inversion frequently with a polariscope. I believe, if I get it right, because I can't be quoted on this, there was something that he did that augmented his looking glass, if you will, that he could actually see much better than the time frame that it was supposed to be possible, right? Kind of like what Rife did with his magnification spectrum. That. So he was, I'm not saying he was able to pull off what Rife did, but I think he had an advanced setup that he had designed himself. These observations were concluded on February 3rd, 1855, and his paper was published in the Report of the French Academy of Science for the session of February 19th, 1855. This left the molds without an explanation, so he started a second series of observations on June 25th, 1856 at Strasbourg in order to determine their origin, and on March 27th, 1857, he started a third series of flasks to study the effects of creosote on the changes. Both series were ended at Montpellier on December 5th, 1857. I know they say Montpelier when it comes to Vermont, but it's pretty sure Pilier if you say it their way. In the second series, he spilled a little liquid from flasks 1 and 2 during manipulation. So these two flasks contained a little air in contact with the liquid. In these two flasks, molds soon appeared and alteration in the medium ensued. He also found that the changes were more rapid in the flask in which the mold grew more rapidly. Wait, what other changes did he talk about? He also found that the changes were more rapid in the flask in which the mold grew more rapidly. Isn't mold the thing that was supposed to be observed? Never mind. In the other 9 flasks, there was no air, no mold formed, and no inversion of the sugar occurred. Oh, okay, he's still doing the sugar test. Plainly, air was needed for the molds and inversion to occur. So they need that in order for that to happen. They need the air. This proved beyond any possibility of doubt that the molds and inversion of the sugar could not be spontaneous action, but must be due to something in the air admitted to the first 2 flasks. Yet Pasteur later called fermentation life without air or life without oxygen, which is dumb. I'll just say it. It's dumb. Well, there's a word. It doesn't matter. I'll find it. I'll figure it out later. At this time, it was quite generally believed that fermentation could not take place except in the presence of albuminoids, which were in general use by Pasteur and others as part of their solutions. Hence, their solutions could have contained these living organizations, he says, to start with. Béchamp's solutions contained only pure cane sugar and water, and when heated with fresh slaked lime, did not disengage ammonia, ample proof that they contained no albumin. Yet molds, obviously living organisms, and therefore containing albuminoid matter, had appeared in these two solutions. Béchamp proved to his own satisfaction that these molds were living organisms and that cane sugar was inverted, as he said. Only in proportion to the development of molds, these elementary vegetations then acting as ferments. They're eating and they're pooping. That's a ferment. Pasteur, apparently overlooking the air contact, challenged Béchamp's statement, saying, "To be logical, Béchamp should say that he was..." And I'm not going to do that the whole time. To be logical, Béchamp should say that he has proved... I guess they don't like the word proven. That molds arise in pure sugared water without nitrogen, phosphates, or other mineral elements, for that is an enormity that can be deduced from his work, in which there is not the expression of the least astonishment that molds have been able to grow in pure water with pure sugar without any other mineral or organic principles. Béchamp will allow me to retort, he says. Béchamp's retort to this was, a chemist au courant with science ought not to be surprised that molds are developed in sweetened water contained in contact with air in glass flasks. It is the astonishment of Pasteur that is astonishing. Nice. As Béchamp started with no nitrogen, as Béchamp started with no nitrogen whatever, except what was in the air in the first two flasks, it is probably the first time any growth or any kind of organism was proved to have absorbed nitrogen from the air. Apparently, Pasteur could not grasp this idea. He's a retard. He's a retard who thinks he's smarter than he is. He's a Mike Israetel. In the preface to his last book, which I read, it was if you go down the Béchamp road, you have to read that. In the preface to his last book, The Blood and Its Third Anatomical Element, Béchamp says that these facts impressed him in the same way that the swing of the cathedral lamp had impressed Galileo. He realized that some living organisms had been carried into these two flasks in the small amount of air admitted, and acting as ferments had produced the mold and the inversion in the sugar. He compared the transformation of cane sugar in the presence of molds to that produced upon starch by diastase, the ferment that converts starch into sugar. Anaerobic, that's what I was thinking of, without air. Aerobic, anaerobic, right? He sent his report on these findings to the Academy of Science in December 1857, and an extract was published in its reports in 1858, though the full paper was not published until September of that year. I think these are things we don't need to know. He says of these experiments, excuse me, hold on. All right. By its title, The memoir was a work of pure chemistry, which had at first no other object than to determine whether or not pure cold water could invert cane sugar, and if, further, the salts had any influence on the inversion. But soon the question, as I had foreseen, became complicated. It became at once physiological and dependent upon the phenomena of fermentation and the question of spontaneous generation. Thus, from the study of a simple chemical fact, I was led to investigate the causes of fermentation and the nature and origin of ferments. The changers, the game changers, the things that eat and poop. That's the ferments. Although Schwann had suggested airborne germs in about 1837, he had not proved his idea. Now Béchamp proved them to exist. Yet Pasteur, in his 1857 memoir, still clings to the idea that both the molds and ferments take birth spontaneously, although his solutions all contained dead yeast or yeast broth, which might have carried germs or ferments from the start. These are people who don't understand purification. The idea of isolation is so simple. A child can understand it clearly. All of one thing and nothing else. It's really easy. And you should not be trying to describe or observe something when there's other things going on which create other variables, and you're just assuming that those things don't matter, they don't have any effect, they don't have any impact on what's happening. That's stupid. That's very stupid, because it's that thing, and they're just like, oh, this is happening because of this, and no, you find out they didn't prove virus by having tissue dye in a sample because they had already put chemicals in it. They had already mixed it up. They put dyes in it. They irradiated it, and then they're like, oh, look, cell death. See, told you that piece of sample that we got from that one person that we totally didn't, isolate anything out of and put in this other. Yeah, we win. Viruses. Stupid. Yeah, Pasteur in his 1850. Yeah, I already said that. He does conclude that the ferment is a living being, yet states that this cannot be irrefutably demonstrated. But Béchamp had demonstrated it irrefutably in his paper, and that's because he's discrediting. This shit's nuts, right? It's as if some controlling hand already knew the answers. This is what makes me think about resets a lot, and like what is the entity? What is the shadow? What is the black cube behind all this? Because they're always a step ahead in their knowledge to know what to suppress. They know what to target. They know what to ignore or push out of history. Is that a more recent phenomenon, or is this just the way history has gone? It's been steered because when people, I guess notice would be a better word than discovered. Notice something that could potentially lead in a proper working mind, in a wise individual like Béchamp, lead to greater, deeper insights into how things work. And if they know that, they might know how things don't work. In which case, all of a sudden, the artifice, the artificial construct that is being created by the controlling powers starts to unravel. Because this belief system that they have to give you so that you don't question the answers that they're giving you, and therefore you'll take their medicines and you'll be appropriately ill because of them. You'll be a controllable population, and your mind and everything else won't be suppressed if you don't take those things. So to me, it just seems like mechanisms of control. But how do they know what to suppress and what to ignore, and what stooge to challenge them? I don't think this is all just happenstance, because it happens too perfectly for them every single time. We had people as brilliant as Béchamp come along a lot of times, and you have to dig through history. They don't delete it completely, right? But they bury it. And then when you bring it up, it's like, oh, that's that old thinking. And then they discredit you in the present day. It's like, oh, that Waddell, that was so long ago. Yeah, like, so? Like, what? Really? Was it? He's the only guy who could read the freaking stuff. Well, his interpretations are different. Yeah, it's because everybody else was retarded and they were pretending because they were looking at everything through a Semitic lens. So, which is better, the bias or the unbiased? Somebody just wants to know the truth, or somebody who has a political agenda that serves the control mechanism? It's like most of your history, most of your science, most of your medical, because all three are controlled, and the media to shout out the loudest narratives that they want you to believe in are all controlled by the same entity. So when people like this come along, they get brushed away really quickly, but they don't delete them. I think it's maybe strategy not to do that, because maybe they would figure out somebody would find it, and if it was that suppressed, then there'd be more questions. So they just kind of let it sit as, yeah, that was already discredited a long time ago. Don't even bother looking at that stuff. According to Miss Hume, Béchamp was also the first to distinguish between. Did I finish this one? Did I read that part? Yeah, that's all one long sentence. I must have. According to Miss Hume, Béchamp was also the first to distinguish between the organized or living ferment and the soluble ferment, which he obtained by crushing the molds, and which he found to act directly on the sugar, causing rapid inversion. He named this substance zymase in a paper, Memoirs on Fermentation by Organized Ferments, which he read before the Academy of Science on April 4th, 1864. You guys should write that down. I don't think very many of these things have been translated out of French, but we have the internet and the AI these days, right? I'm sure they'll fuck it up pretty good, because just by the way of most, it's like predicate subject. A lot of it's whatever. But yeah, you might be able to find some way to see more of what Béchamp wrote, because the only one that was actually translated that, to my knowledge, is The Blood in its Third Anatomical Element. There was a process, and somebody was starting to do that. I don't know what happened. I think they died or something, and then they just never continued on the work. Strange to say, exactly the same word is used by others whom various encyclopedias have credited with this discovery in 1897. So he named the substance zymase in 1864, and they just roll over the top of him because he wasn't the one shaking all the hands and networking all the demons that like Béchamp was. And it seems like controlled release when they have one of their stooges take credit for something. Even if you have the right answer, you can still steer that tool in the wrong way, use it in the wrong manner. They put the tool in the hands of their people. Strange to say, exactly the same word is used by others whom various encyclopedias have credited with this discovery in 1897, over 30 years later. This is what they do to people. In this paper, he also gave a complete explanation of the phenomena of fermentation as being due to the nutrition of living organisms, i.e., a process of absorption, assimilation, and excretion. In the preface to The Blood in its Third Anatomical Element, which I've seen a lot of times be called The Blood in its Third Element, I don't know why they take out the word anatomical, but I think that's sinister too. Because if they change the word of the title, can't they change the words inside as well? Can't that be like what they call it, digital rights management, where the same book you had in your, this is a Kindle right now, Kindle library, you still have it. They didn't delete it like they did with some people's books, but they may have altered the words, and that's part of the DRM. They can change history. In the preface to Blood and a Certain Anatomical Element, Béchamp says, it resulted that the soluble ferment was allied to the insoluble by the relation of product to producer. The soluble ferment being unable to exist without the organized ferment, which is necessarily insoluble. Further, as the soluble ferment and the albuminoid matter, being nitrogenous, I guess you could say, nitrogenous, could only be formed by obtaining the nitrogen from the limited volume of air left in the flasks. It was at the same time demonstrated that the free nitrogen of the air could help directly in the synthesis of the nitrogenous. How about we'll go with nitrogenous? Yeah, that works better. Nitrogenous substance of plants, which up to that time had been a disputed question. Oops. Thus, it became evident that since the material forming the structure of molds and yeast was elaborated within the organism, let me make sure that everybody's good. Hold on. I should have done this because I can't see the screen when I'm doing this. I'm only looking at this. So if anybody's yelling at me about something, I'm not going to know. Let me see. It takes forever on this phone to do anything and for me to figure out what buttons I'm supposed to fucking press. Hold on. I'll be with you in a moment, though. Malicious. Malicious sounds better because we're on it. You know? Sounds like something black people call each other. Malicious. Let's see. Last thing that was said besides grape ape or rape ape. Sound is good to me. Says Karen. Merchant, C-speak. Yeah, that's interesting, right? That I like that you bring that up again. That's like the sirens. Hey, come over to the... Oh, crash! There's the rocks. There goes your society, fucker. Karen Peterson. I was just telling my niece about this book tonight, like literally a half hour ago. Nice. All right, let's see. Thus, it became evident that since the material forming the structure of molds and yeast was elaborated within the organism, it must also be true that the soluble ferments and products of fermentation are also secreted there, as was the case with the soluble ferment that inverted the cane sugar. Hence, I became assured that which is called fermentation is in reality the phenomena of nutrition, assimilation, and disassimilation, and the excretion of the products disassimilated. You thought I was being funny when I was saying eating poop, right? I read the book. I read the freaking book, The Blood and the Third Anatomical Element. Bacteria, or in the case of yeast, yeah, they're pooping alcohol for you. Isn't that nice? It's like that South Park where I want to shit ice cream. I want to be a taco and shit ice cream. Well, yeah, now you're ice cream for the world. That's nice. In these solutions, there existed no albuminoid substance. They were made with pure cane sugar, which, heated with fresh slaked lime, does not give off ammonia. It thus appears evident that airborne germs found the sugared solution to be a favorable medium for their development. And it must be admitted that the ferment in here is here. I have a hard time when it's other ways of people writing because I'm assuming something. I'm anticipating, and it must be admitted that the ferment is here produced by the generation of fungi. The matter that develops in the sugared water sometimes presents itself in the form of little isolated bodies, and sometimes in the form of voluminous, colorless membranes which come out in one mass from the flasks. These membranes heated with caustic potash. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's how I say it in my mind when I read the book. Give off ammonia in abundance. Could be potash. How do you pronounce it? Let's find out. I'm curious now, so I don't sound like a retard the rest of the night. Let's see. Potash is a group of water-soluble salts. Or potash, I don't know. Containing potassium. That would make sense. Potash. It's like slang G. If you're like a chemist G, you're like, what up, potash? What up, my potassium? Like, you know, it's just a thing that you do to make it informal with your homies. Containing potassium, primarily used as an agricultural fertilizer to improve crop yields and plant health. The name comes from the old method of soaking wood ashes, so it's potash, in a pot of water. Oh, potash. Yeah. Saying it any other way now would just sound stupid, right? It's not potash, it's potash. Or is it potash? Yum. I don't know. I'm retarded. All right, let's go. Yeah, all right. Next. This proved that albuminoids were present, hence the little bodies were living matter. It also proves that Professor Béchamp understood the formation and growth of molds and ferments in 1857, years before Pasteur comprehended these psychological processes. Right, because he lied and stole and then changed it still. So it would be useless for any actual advancement in thought and knowledge. In 1859, over a year after Béchamp's paper covering this 1857, his 1857 experiments was printed, Pasteur started another experiment more in line with Béchamp's ideas. In fact, it was apparently inspired by them. He omitted all yeast but used ammonia, which contains nitrogen, in his solutions, and then ascribed the origin of lactic yeast to the atmosphere and the atmospheric air. He was surprised that animal and vegetable matter should appear and grow in such an environment, because he doesn't check with his colleagues and thinks everybody else is stupid. Kind of like, again, Mike Israetel. He says, as to the origin of the lactic yeast in these experiments, it is solely due to the atmospheric air. We fall back here upon the facts of spontaneous generation. Dumbass. Like, his whole entire experiment proves otherwise, because he needed to manipulate it to have the components necessary for something to grow. Those components carry the very thing that he says just appears out of nowhere. No, it didn't. It appeared in the shit that you were putting together. And see what I mean? This is science, guys. This is what they give us. This is the Goy science. After asserting that excluding atmospheric air or boiling the solution will prevent the formation of organisms or fermentation, he says this: excluding atmospheric air or boiling the solution will prevent the formation of organisms. Okay, yeah, great. Or fermentation, he says, on this point, the question of spontaneous generation has made progress. In a still later memoir, plainly inspired by Béchamp's beacon experiment, Pasteur again constantly refers to the spontaneous production of yeast and fermentation. There is no question but that he still believed in spontaneous generation of germs and ferments at this time, and his reasoning appears somewhat childish when compared to Béchamp's work. Well, I will say this, but this also, I don't know. So you could make the argument, it's like wood coffee. One could make the argument, I guess, that shining a light, if there's the signal or the message or the the FQ is in the light, that'll, like, they've done these things where it would generate like DNA in a glass in a bottle, but there's still stuff in that water. It's not pure. You know what I mean? So I don't know if we would use that, but still, that's not spontaneous either. It's a signal being transmitted and then something taking action, and there have to be things there to build it. It's nothing spontaneous about any of that process, even if you did do the light. If you did send the bat beam bat signal into the whatever. However, in 1860, he started another experiment in which he prepared 73 vials, PHIAL. It's not vials, but files. I guess it's probably the same thing. For unfermented liquid to expose at various points on a much advertised in advance trip. This is great, huh? he opened and resealed various vials at different places. The last 20 on the Merle glass above Chamonix. I know it's all French, so I'm trying to be all fancy, but I'm not doing a good job. It's been a long time since high school French. He practically repeated Deschamps' experiments here, but of course he had to use a different and more spectacular method to get attention. So he's retracing the steps. Can you see what's happening here? He's overshadowing and he's pushing out. So that's why I said it's a much advertised and advanced trip, of course, because he's the showboat. He's the self promoter here, but he's not actually self promoted. He's promoted by the cult and the Brotherhood. But he's pulling a Ben Azule, But he's completely plagiarizing and fucking and faking everything that he's doing. So he practically repeated Deschamps' experiments here, but of course he had to use a different and more spectacular method to get attention. So what they don't talk about here is that very element of what Deschamps did, and I believe this might even be explained in The Blood and its Third Anatomical Element, but I don't think they just told you in advance here that this is what Deschamps did. He went and he took different air samples from all over the place and was conducting a different experiment himself. So that's why I wasn't sure quite who was doing what at this moment, because I remember that being something that Deschamps did. So he practically repeated Deschamps' experiments here, but of course he had to use a different and more spectacular method to get attention. From this time on, he veered away from spontaneous generation. Oh, isn't that nice? And began to explain the same occurrences, fermentation, as being caused by germs in the air. Children are being mutilated, murdered, because of this fucking asshole laid the foundation for it. And all he's doing is agreeing a little bit more with Deschamps, because Deschamps' right, and that lends him credibility, but then he changes the conclusion or whatever, and he's stealing away the impact and the importance of everything Deschamps does. This is what this asshole is doing. He's like a parasite, right? Paul de Creef in Microbe Hunters, a grandiose attempt to exalt some of the original experimenters in seromology, glosses over Pasteur's willingness to steal credit for the ideas of others, and after describing his use, without credit, of Ballard's suggestion of the swan neck bottle to admit dust-free and germ-free air into a flask, says of this High Alps experiment. Then Pasteur invented an experiment he invented the experiment, did he? That was, so far as one can tell from a careful search through the records, really his own. That's a kick in the dead dick of Deschamps. It was a grand experiment, a semi-public experiment, an experiment that meant rushing across France in trains. It was a test in which he had to slither on glaciers. Oh, so dramatic. So dramatic. What a nice publicist. What a nice PR guy. However, de Creef doubted thoroughly that it was Pasteur's, and he might. There we go, that's better. Captured at that time. Yet little did he realize how few of Pasteur's foolhardy claims were either his own or, in fact, even true in any particular. In a discussion of spontaneous generation at the Sorbonne during a meeting on November 22nd, 1861, not 1963, Pasteur had the nerve to claim, in the presence of Professor Deschamps, all credit for the proof that living organisms appeared in a medium devoid of albuminoid matter. This guy was an asshole. This guy was such an asshole. The experiments that Béchamp is doing, you have like this guy looking over your shoulder, like the whole, what they call it, Napster. Isn't that the history of Napster? Like somebody had their shit stolen when they were passed out or something. That's why they call it, whatever. That could have just been a tag for a movie or whatever, but could have been the false history, the glorified one. Before he had the nerve to claim in the presence of Pasteur, of Béchamp, all credit for the proof that living organisms appeared in a medium devoid of albuminoid matter. Béchamp asked him to admit knowledge of Béchamp's 1857 work, but did not charge him with plagiarism, and Pasteur evaded the question, merely admitting that Béchamp's work was rigidly exact. This was not an accident, but deliberate, premeditated fraud. And he stated in front of the colleagues, and they hear it, and they're not privy to the work that was already published and written. They're, oh, what a great guy, Pastor. You're so freaking brilliant. Premeditated fraud. However, Béchamp was too much of a gentleman to make any unpleasant charges. That it took several more years to get the spontaneous generation idea completely or entirely out of Pasteur's head is indicated by the article on Pasteur in the 14th edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica, which says, the recognition of the fact that both lactic and alcohol fermentation was hastened by exposure to air naturally led Pasteur, of course, to wonder whether his invisible organisms were always present in the atmosphere or whether they were spontaneously generated. By a series of intricate experiments, including the filtration of air and the famous exposure of unfermented liquids to the pure air of the high Alps, he was able to declare with certainty with certainty after somebody else did in 1864 that the minute organisms causing fermentation were not spontaneously generated but came from similar organisms with which ordinary air was impregnated. Here it is again. Not until 1864, not until Béchamp safely said it already, not until 1864 did he give up his idea of spontaneous generation, and the High Alps adventure was only high theater, well advertised in advance to enable him to grab Béchamp's discovery and yet have some new stuff to attract attention to himself. Right. He sees the brilliance of Béchamp. He's going to make a spectacle out of it. And who's going to remember who? Béchamp, the guy who's actually doing the work and, he's got his head down taking care of business, or the guy who's the freaking showboat, the Ric Flair. Who's going to remember who? The one who's loud and obnoxious and has all the connections with royalty. We want to hang out with this guy because look at everybody he knows. Wow, that's the in crowd. Of course, he could not follow exactly the same methods. Someone might bring up Béchamp's memoirs, hence the high Alps and slithering on glaciers. His experiments made in 1859 also indicated knowledge of Béchamp's work without albuminoids. And his evasion of Béchamp's question at the Sorbonne, I'm just going to go with that, meeting in 1861, lends further support to such a belief, while his attacks on Béchamp suggest that he recognized a rival and was keenly jealous. Yes, envy, jealousy, hatred, spite. That's what the Oives are all about. I'm not saying Pasteur wasn't Oive, but he was in the cult. He was in their brotherhood. He was in the fraternals. He was in the crowd of assholes. Note that this final acceptance of ideas that Béchamp had brought forward, the final acceptance of the ideas that Béchamp had brought forward 6 years earlier did not come until after Béchamp had published his complete paper with a full and most thoroughly proven explanation of the process of fermentation. Right. He's not only a complete scumbag like Einstein, who came after him, but he's also a cowardly scumbag who waits until the cards are flipped over and everything's settled, and then he'll make his statement and he'll run with it. First to the presses, must be my story type of thing. Did I already do? Okay. However, Pasteur had, on completion of his high Alps experiment in 1860, accepted or had begun to accept the idea that germs of the air caused fermentation, and good for him to accept it. And soon he leaped way ahead to the conclusion that these germs also cause disease, as Plenses, let's go with that, had suggested about 100 years before. Of this idea, he had no more proof than Plenses, except that it was now known there were germs in existence, which Plenses apparently did not prove. Although Béchamp, well, we don't know that though, right? Lost information, perhaps? I don't know. Although Béchamp had made clear the physiological nature of fermentation in his paper on his 1857 experiments, and had given more complete details in his 1864 paper, Pasteur apparently had not fully grasped its true nature as late as 1872, when he published a paper in which he stated, am I moving? No. Okay. I thought this thing started playing on its own. That which separates the chemical phenomenon of fermentation from other acts, and especially from the acts of ordinary life, is the decomposition of a weight of fermentative matter much greater than the weight of the ferment. Can anyone make such a statement who really understood the true nature of fermentation action? Apparently Pasteur did not. And when you hear the statements that he does make, they're like non-statements. It's like when you explain something to a 5-year-old and then they explain something, or they latch onto the wrong piece of information, thinking that is where the what do you call it, the key element of this newly found description or explanation you gave them. But it's really like, it's like you're describing the paper on the wallpaper, but you're missing the bigger thing. It's fine when it's a child because they're observing everything and they're maybe not even transfixed on that thing, but that's the part that pops up in their heads for them to repeat back to you, because they want to please you with their knowledge, right? When they repeat it back. This is how we train our own children, and then fucking schools, they steal their brains from you and they turn your children against you. It's like the eagerness to want to please the authority figure starts with the mom and the dad, and then it goes to the teacher, and that teacher ends up becoming, because of the way it's set up, more important to the kid than you do, even though you raised them for X amount of years before they went into this fucking environment. It's the reward system. It's all that crap, right? So in collaboration with Professor Esther Béchamp, so anyway, the point is, when he does make statements, they're like, dude, are you fucking... It just shows how like juvenile his thinking is. You'll see this pattern throughout. In collaboration with Professor Esther, Béchamp answered this with an effort to make the natural... Fuck! In collaboration with Professor Esther, Béchamp answered this with an effort to make the nature of fermentation clear, in a paper printed on, I don't care what page, of the same volume of the Comptes Rendus, in which he said, suppose an adult man to have lived a century and to weigh on average 60 kilograms, 120 pounds-ish. A little bit more than that, because it's 2.2 pounds per kilogram. But you get it. It's close. He will have consumed over that time, besides other foods, the equivalent of 20,000 kilograms of flesh and produced about 800 kilograms of urea. So he weighs 60 kilograms. He's eaten 20 kilograms and he's peed at 800 kilograms in that span of years. 100 years. Of course, there is no suggestion that this mass of flesh and urea could at any moment of his life form part of his being. Right. You eat it, you poop it. You eat it, you pee it. Whatever. You pee it, you poop it, whatever it is. Depending on what the mechanism, if you're drinking it, you're peeing it. But in the case of this, you get the point. There's no suggestion that this mass of food and urea could at any moment of his life form part of his being. Just as a man consumes all that food only by repeating the same act a great many times, the yeast cell consumes the great mass of sugar only by constantly assimilating and disassimilating it, bit by bit. Now, that which only one man will consume in a century, a sufficient number of men would absorb in a day. It is the same with the yeast. The sugar that a smaller number of cells would consume in a year, a greater number would destroy in a day. In both cases, the more numerous the individuals, the more rapid the consumption. Is that not clear enough? Even for a man whose diploma was marked mediocre in chemistry, Pasteur, to comprehend? It seems that a child should be able to understand it. Yet Pasteur repeated his statement 4 years later in Études sur la bière, or sur la bière, maybe sur la bière, in 1876. That late, 1876. So Béchamp's clear explanation apparently failed to have any effect. At least on him. Yeah, at least on him. And that's the person everybody's holding up on their shoulders. Oh, he's the greatest guy. Recognition. Blah. He's a living legend. Human. Man, legend among men. God among men. And this is how history goes for everything. Just because we don't know, we discover a new one all the time. And there's so many more that are undiscovered. The idiots are the ones that everybody reads about, everybody talks about, everybody's taught, are the fucking idiots. We know bullshit goy perspective on the world to keep us stupid and enslaved. And we're celebrating the demons and hating the heroes. Also, thanks to history and the assholes who teach it. Here is proof that from 8 to 14 years after Béchamp had completely disclosed the physiological nature of fermentation and described its action in minute detail, Pasteur had not yet grasped the facts regarding the process. In its article on fermentation, the Encyclopedia Britannica... Did I already just say this? No, is this a different one? Yeah. Fermentation, according to Pasteur, was caused by the growth and multiplication of unicellular organisms out of contact with free oxygen, under which circumstances they acquire the power of taking oxygen from chemical compounds in the medium in which they are growing. In other words, fermentation is life without air. What a fucking idiot. Or life without oxygen. It's not anaerobic, dude. This theory of fermentation was materially modified in 1892 and 1894. By A.J. Brown, who described experiments which were in disagreement with Pasteur's dictum. Right. See, it doesn't matter. Even if everything has been flipped around or turned around, what matters is that they teach the person and they put that peg in that place where somebody like Béchamp should have been in the minds of people. Even if they refute everything throughout, like over time, to where there's like, what's left? What was his contribution besides misunderstandings? And then people will say, well, that's just the progress of science. But meanwhile, at the same time, as a contemporary, you had the right answers, and they ignored him. So is it all Béchamp, or is it the system itself that's choosing to be mediocre and ignorant? And the answer is, obviously, they can't let the masses learn too much too quickly. And these are the people who get stuck in their head. Oh, Béchamp, and he did all this wonderful, Pasteur, and he did all these wonderful things. Like, that's what people think. Pasteur discovered this, and there's a germ theory of that, and viruses here, and bacteria there, and make sure you use bullshit on your hands that seeps into your bloodstream, so that you're sanitized. For what? As did Béchamp over 35 years earlier, in 1855 and 1858, and Pasteur appropriated and perverted his ideas. Pasteur also jumped to the conclusion that each kind of fermentation had one specific germ, while Béchamp proved that each microorganism might vary its fermentative effect in conformity with the medium in which it finds itself. This also points to the microzyma, by the way. This is how he gets to that. He also showed that these microorganisms, under varying conditions, might even change their shape, as has been recently proved so conclusively by F. Lanus, maybe, and N.R. Smith of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Pasteur, however, proceeded to classify his germs and label each with a definite and unalterable function. Isn't that nice? Doesn't that sound pretty, it's all that Jew Bible bullshit, right? The oversimplification for their stupid, slow minds. Name things in the Bible: cat, pig, cow. Oh wait, this is Hebrew. Animal, because we don't have any specific fucking words because we suck. Everything animal. Everything plant. Everything plant. 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 Pasteur, however, proceeded to classify his germs and labeled each with we already said that definite and inalterable function, wherein he was wrong again, as we shall soon see. Venous fermentation. Vinous fermentation. Another step that went along with the work on fermentation in general was the discovery of the causes of diseases in French grapes. Béchamp, hearing of the commotion over this trouble in the vineyards, quietly took up a study of it in 1862, the year before Pasteur turned his attention to the subject. A year before, Béchamp exposed to contact with air, grape must as found on the vines, grape must filtered, and grape must decolorized by animal charcoal. Animal charcoal, huh? Cooking up some puppies, eh? They all fermented, but not equally so. And he's going back to the ferment. And the molds or ferments developed were not identical in these three experiments, which of course caused him to seek a reason for this. He said, "The fuck it is." He probably didn't say that. On further experiments with the rigid exclusion of the air, the whole healthy grapes with stalks attached being introduced directly from the vine into boiled sweetened water cooled with carbonic acid gas bubbling through it. Fermentation took place and was completed in this medium, proving that air was not required for that one. Hence, the ferment must have been carried on the grapes and was not airborne. Professor Béchamp concluded that the organism causing the must to ferment must be carried on the grape, its leaves, or the vines, and that it might also be an organism injurious to the plants, causing potential harm to the plants. So, disease. He published a volume on vinous fermentation in 1863 entitled that the Leçons sur la fermentation vinus et sur la fabrication du vino, in which he discussed the subject. He also presented 2 papers on the making of wine to the Academy entitled, I'm gonna make you do this again, huh? Sur l'acide du vin and sur l'utilité et les inconvénients du couvage prolongé dans la fabrication du vin. Sur la fermentation, he's not done yet. Sur la fermentation alcoolique dans cette fabrication. All right, I'm never doing that again. In October 1864, he presented a communication to the Academy of Science on the origin of vinous fermentation. Thank you for saying it in English. An exhaustive account of the experiments described above. This paper was a complete study of the subject in which he proved that vinous fermentation was due to organisms found on the skins of grapes and also often found on the leaves and other parts of the vine. So they're being attacked. So what does that mean? Decomposition. What is decomposition? Something's eating something else. Hence fermenting. They're eating, right? That's changing something. You get it. Rot type of ferment. Let's see. Hence, at times, diseased vines might affect the quality of the fermentation and the resulting wine. So by October 1864, Béchamp had several papers in print, but what was Pasteur up to? Oh, waiting for him to get done so he could just swoop in and be like, yeah, I got this. I'll take it from here since you figured everything out. In 1862, Pasteur was admitted to the French Academy. I thought they were going to say he was to the French Insane Asylum. That would have been better. Through the influence of Biot and the mineralogical section, which based its nomination and support on Pasteur's past work on crystallography. Completely separate and that's totally something else. Yet many attacks were made on his treatment of that subject, so it was disputed. It wasn't like, woohoo! And he soon took the advice of friends to drop this line of work. He got kicked out of one place, and now he's been accepted into the French Academy. He's only failing upward, this asshole. That's usually a sign of some other hand behind it, right? In March of 1863, he met the emperor. Right. How? Why? What the... Huh? And was soon sent to the vineyards to study the grape disease. Yeah, of course. Yeah, send that guy. Yeah, the emperor said, yeah, everybody get out of the way. Pasteur's coming. What? Well, how did he hasn't even proven himself in anything yet. And all he's done is say ridiculous, stupid shit. But there's something behind this. You know there has to be. With the prestige of having the emperor's backing. Right. Everybody best back the fuck away with that backing. He published several papers on the vines and their troubles in the latter part of 1863 and in 1864. Remember, this was already solved in 1862. But apparently was still promoting his spontaneous generation theory, which Béchamp had so completely exploded in 1858. He's way behind the times. He's thinking retarded, and he's the first guy they call. And he did not guess correctly as to the cause of the trouble with the vines. In 1865, he offered 5 papers, and others came later, but he does not seem to have hit on the right answer to the problem until 1872. Meanwhile, crops are being screwed over. People are losing money. Right? Right. Why do I keep saying that? Probably when he made the great discovery that Béchamp was right again. Yeah, but did he say, oh yeah, Béchamp had it right? No. It's his idea, you see. Béchamp was right. How long ago? 1864. Yeah, that's right. In this year, Pasteur presented a memoir entitled New Experiments to Demonstrate that the Yeast Germ that Makes Wine Comes from the Exterior of Grapes. And that's how the point was I was making too is like that's how they were testing to see how the flavors would be different and all that. So as Béchamp had made the same statement in 1864, in his 1864 paper, and had right because remember like the skins, right? That's exactly it's on the thing itself. As Béchamp had made the same statement in his 1864 paper, and it had not been disproven in the intervening 8 years, it was pretty safe bet for Pasteur to make. And I think when I was reading this, I was under the impression that we were further ahead in the book. So excuse me for putting that through the wrong lens when I was reading it. This was him just explaining the process. Okay, whatever. There was also a portion where there was a disease to some other leaf, and he found that creosote spray would have fixed it. And then it took years of fucking around and bumbling and screwing things up and coming up retarded explanations before Pasteur incorrect. There was something there. You'll see as we read. But I was mixing two things together because I didn't remember this whole thing about the vineyard. So I was seeing it as if it was like an attack at there was a disease plant. So I don't know. Anyway, as shown in the second chapter, Béchamp was the first to prove that the molds accompanying fermentation were or contained living organisms and could not be spontaneously generated, but must be an outgrowth of some living organism carried in the air. This much was in his 1858 memoir, 6 years before Pasteur came to the same conclusions. Being the first to realize that these molds or ferments were living organisms, he naturally was also the first to attempt to determine their true nature and functions and their origins. You want to know why I think they believe in the spontaneous generation theory? Because I think this is an insight into the minds of these people who are holding on to that belief so harsh, so strongly. Because if it's not doing them any good in their careers, and other people are proving that that's not correct, and they still continue to push it, I think it's because of alchemy. I think because these people are in this brotherhood, and it's because of like things like the what do they call it, the homunculus and shit like that. I think they're holding on to like that type of idea. And there's another guy who comes to mind, but I can't remember his name at the moment. He's a bit of I think his name started with a P, or at least the name he went by. I'll have to look it up sometime and remember, but it makes me wonder if it's because of that, because of their belief in the spontaneous generation thing, and like, oh, if you keep this thing sealed in this hermetically sealed container for a long enough period of time, you know, different things will grow out of different things that weren't in there before, because they don't understand that the air itself had something in it that would have, been introducing something to it. So when they look at these, I associate that with alchemists doing that, right? And like, oh, a honeybee came out of nowhere. Like, where did that come from? If anything, it came from a fucking microzyme, but that still would have meant that it was already in there, not that it spontaneously was created. Like if you went from like bacteria to this thing to that thing, and each time the climate inside the of the container like changed a little bit due to decomposition or whatnot, whatever the case may be. Maybe if it's hermetically sealed, none of that's happening. But if air is trapped inside and they don't account for that, it's just no air can get in, but there's already air trapped in it. Well, then you've already fucked up your experiment, right? You didn't vacuum it out. Whatever. It makes me wonder if it has something to do with, of course, the idea of the alchemist that they're holding onto it so much, and it might be kind of like a telltale sign that they're in these brotherhoods, fraternal orders. Béchamp's microzyma, or little bodies. Being the first to realize that these molds or ferments were living organisms, he naturally was also the first to attempt to determine their true nature and functions and their origins. On putting some under the microscope, he noted a diversity in appearance of the molds and was soon involved in the study of cell life. In his earlier experiments, Béchamp had used several salts, including potassium carbonate, in the presence of which the inversion of cane sugar did not take place. But when he repeated his experiment using calcium carbonate, this is important. I was just watching a video by Dr. Glidden the other day about the White Cliffs of Dover, which is all calcium carbonate, common chalk. Instead of the potassium carbonate, he found that inversions of the cane sugar did not take place, even when creosote was added. This observation was so unexpected that he omitted it from his earlier memoir in order to verify it before publication of the fact. In carefully controlled experiments, he found that when chemically pure calcium carbonate was added to his sugar solutions, let's see. Oh, okay, sorry. I say. Let me start over. In carefully controlled experiments, he found that when chemically pure calcium carbonate was added to his sugar solutions, no inversion took place. But when ordinary chalk, even that chipped from the native rock without access of air, was used, inversion always occurred. On heating the common chalk to 300 degrees, he found that it lost its powers of fermentation. And on examining more of the unheated common chalk under the microscope, he found it contained some little bodies similar to those found in prior observations, and which he found did not exist in the chemically pure calcium carbonate, nor in the chalk that had been heated. These little bodies had the power of movement and were smaller than any of the microphytes seen in fermentation or molds, but were more powerful ferments than any he had encountered previously. Their power of movement and production of fermentation caused him to regard them as living organisms. He advised, well, anything that eats, right? If you eat and you poop or pee, you're alive. He advised Dumas, that's not dumbass, it's Dumas, of his discovery of living organisms in chalk in December 1864. And later, on September 26, 1865, he wrote a letter which Dumas published. He stated, "Chalk and milk contain already developed living beings, which is proved by the fact that creosote employed in a non-coagulation dose does not prevent milk from finely turning, nor chalk, without extraneous help, from converting both sugar and starch into alcohol and then into acetic acid, tartaric acid, and butyric acid," which was ample proof that there was a ferment, a living organism present in both milk and chalk. He said of these, "The naturalist will not be able to distinguish them by a description, but the chemist and also the physiologist will characterize them by their function." They look, but they behave, different. Professor Béchamp found that the chalks seemed to be formed mostly of the mineral or fossil remains of a microscopic world and contained organisms of infinitesimal size, which he believed to be alive. He also believed they might be of immense antiquity, as he had traced the block of limestone he used to the tertiary period in geology. Yet he found that stone cut from the solid ledge. Jesus, every fucking word tonight. I might have to cut it. Maybe it's too late. Maybe we'll do more of this tomorrow. We'll definitely do more of this tomorrow. But yet he found that stone cut from the solid ledge, with all air excluded, had wonderful fermentative powers, which he traced to the same little bodies. I say it like that because I had to listen to this book when I was working one time years ago, and it was through what do you call it? Archive.org. It's the only place I could find an audio for it because you can just play them. And it was like the female voice narrator, and every time they got to that, they go, "little bodies." So it just stuck in my head for freaking ever now. And so every time I hit it, I like say it differently. Just hopefully that'll work on you too. You'll remember little bodies is the microzyma. So, you know how robotic voices, I can't call, that's not AI, that's just robotic voices. The automation never knows how to accent words, and like words that should be simple and understand. Like tonight, the way I'm talking, basically, they don't know where to place the accent. And you know, sometimes in context, the word has to be said different, like minute and minute. You know, but you have to read ahead to know which one it's going to be. If you don't get it from the pretext, you got to see it from the you know. Anyway, which he traced to the same little bodies that he had found to cause fermentation in his earlier experiments. He concluded that they must have lived embedded in the stone of the ledge for many thousands of years. What the hell's going on? Why is this fucking thing doing stupid shit? I hate this new phone. Just don't tell my mom. So I don't want to be mad. Let's see. For fucking feeling. What the fuck? Every fucking thing, dude. Like, stop. Now I just ended it. What the fuck? Dude, there's so much shit going on right now. Why do I can't fucking deal with this right now. This fucking phone's a piece of shit. I can't just. I don't have the thing set to for the screen to like to turn off. But guess what? It keeps fucking doing that. It's why have settings if you're just gonna say fuck you to me every time and just try to do something anyway? Power it down. I don't have any battery saving bullshit turned on. This thing doesn't even fucking auto capitalize after a period. And I've set it. It's set that way. It's a fucking piece of shit. Anyhow. He concluded that they must have lived embedded in the stone of the ledge for many thousands of years. In 1866, he sent to the Academy of Science a memoir called On the Role of Chalk and Butyric, however you pronounce it, and lactic fermentations and the living organism contained in it. In this paper, he named his little bodies microzymas, from the Greek word for small ferment. Perfect. Now do we understand what microzymas are? They're the things that tiny little elements of life, but they can change. They can change into whatever the fuck they need to change into, given the climate they find themselves in, the environment they find themselves in. If there's no cake, but there's plenty of pasta, they become the pasta bacteria, and they eat all the pasta because that's what's there. If they, you know what I mean? If they're swimming in soda, they become the soda bacteria. In his paper, he named these little bodies microzymas from the Greek words for small ferment. Just want to say it again. He also studied the relations of his microzymas of chalk to the molecular granulations of animal and vegetable cells, with many more geological examinations, and wrote a paper entitled On Geological Microzymas of Various Origins, which was abstracted in Comptus Rendus of the session Non-Comptus Mentis? Incomptus Mentis? All right. Comptus Rendus of the session of April 25th, 1870. He proved that the molecular granulation found in yeast and other animal and vegetable cells had individuality and life, and also had the power to cause fermentation. And so he called them microzymas also. Let's read that again. He proved that the molecular granulation found in yeast, and other animal and vegetable cells had individuality and life, and also had the power to cause fermentation. And so he called them microzymas also. So something within this, small enough to be within the cell. It's almost like mitochondria, right? But their ability to eat tells you that they're alive and that they're probably they might even be running the show. They might even be the reason why other things are alive, because they might be processing things to nourish the rest of the functions of the body. He called his geological microzymas morphologically identical with the microzymas of living beings. In innumerable laboratory experiments, assisted now by Professor Esther, another very able scientist, he found microzymas everywhere, in all organic matter, in both healthy tissues and in diseased, where he also found them associated with various kinds of bacteria. And that's where it matters when it comes to what they claim diseases are and viruses this and bullshit that. So it's like a toxic environment or some other thing. Bacteria come there to just clean up the shit, and then they're like, oh look, there's bacteria every time there's this problem. So blame that stuff. Brilliant. It's like, no, that's your microzyma sending out the freaking fire team to clean up to put out the fire. You jerk off. After painstakingly study, I don't know where the GLY came from. It's just a G. After painstaking study, they decided that the microzymas, rather than the cell, were the elementary units of life, tiniest, smallest unit of life. Not the cell itself, but the microzymas. And we're in fact, so if you already think that the building blocks of life are cells, you're already in a whole different type of thought process when it comes to everything else that precedes that than you would if you started with the microzymas. So modern science is on a different thought process. And we're in fact the builders of cell tissues. They also concluded that bacteria are an outgrowth or an evolutionary form of microzymas that occur when a quantity of diseased tissues is broken up into its constituent elements. They're an outgrowth or an evolutionary form of microzymas. In other words, all living organisms, he believed, from the one-celled amoeba to mankind, are associations of these minute living entities, and their presence is necessary for cell life to grow and for cells to be repaired. Fucking microzymas. Bacteria, they proved, can develop from microzyma by passing through certain intermediate stages, which they described, and which have been regarded by other researchers as different species. They're just different phases. Right? Yes. The germs of the air, they decided, were merely microzymas, or bacteria set free when their former habitat was broken up. And they concluded that the little bodies in the limestone and chalk were the survivors of living beings of long past ages. And so there might be bacteria. They might be bacteria for a little while after the breaking away of an organism, but eventually they're going to settle back into a more neutral type of form, the granules of the base whatever that a microzyma is, until they're put in a new medium, and then they're going to make themselves whatever they have to be in order to eat whatever's there. And then life starts again, and they can be dormant. So basically, life doesn't end if the microzymas are what build us. We're just a freaking committee of microzymas. The germs of the air, they decided, I already said that. This brought them to the beginning of 1868, and to test these ideas, they buried the body of a kitten in pure carbonate of lime. I'm sure they just found it that way, right? Specially prepared and creosoted to exclude any airborne or outside germs. Prepared and creosoted for that. They placed it in a glass jar and covered the open top with several sheets of paper, placed so as to allow renewal of the air without allowing dust or organisms to enter. This was left on a shelf in Béchamp's laboratory until the end of 1874. When opened, it was found that the kitten's body had been entirely consumed except for some small fragments of bone and dry matter. There was no smell, and the carbonate of lime was not discolored. Under the microscope, microzymas were not seen in the upper part of the carbonate of lime, but swarmed by thousands in the part that had been below the kitten's body. As Béchamp thought that there might have been airborne germs in the kitten's fur, lungs, or intestines, he repeated this experiment using the whole carcass of a kitten in one case, the liver only in another, and the heart, lungs, and kidneys in a third test. This sounds really disgusting to me. I try, I get it, but it has to be, does it though? Like a kitten? Come on, man. Find a Jew. It's a better test. These viscera were plunged into carbolic acid the moment they had been detached from the slaughtered animal. This experiment began in June of 1875 and continued to August 1882, over 7 years. It completely satisfied him that this idea fucking stopped turning down. Man, oh man. It completely satisfied him that his idea that microzymas were the living remains of plant and animal life, of which, in either a recent or distant past, they had been the constituent cellular elements, and that they were, in fact, the primary anatomical elements of all living beings, was correct. The base and primary anatomical elements of all living beings is the microzyma. And you probably never heard of it unless you watched the show before, because I don't stop talking about it. He proved that on the death of an organ, its cells disappear, but the microzymas remain imperishable. They are immortal, which means we kind of are, right? They're not vampires though. They actually give life to things. But if they are under the impression that they're in an environment that's decomposing or whatever, well, then they're going to start eating that tissue. And that's why the signaling of these things, you can do that with either chemicals or an actual signal, could make people sick because it could be sending a false trigger mechanism to these microzymas that will then act accordingly. Anyway. As the geologist estimated that the chalk rocks or ledges from which he took his geological microzymas were 11 million years old, it was proof positive that these microzymas could live in a dormant state for practically unlimited lengths of time. When he again found bacteria in the remains of the second experiment, as he had in the first, he concluded that he had proved, because of the care taken to exclude airborne organisms, that bacteria can and do develop from microzymas within the body already. So that's why they couldn't make it so that, you know what I mean? Oh boy. You're wait till you get to the Lister stuff. This is, oh man, it's gonna be so good. That bacteria can and do develop from microzymas and are in fact a scavenging form of microzymas. The bacteria are developed when death, decay, or disease cause an extraordinary amount of cell life either to need repair or to be broken up. And that's the key. You have your 90 essential nutrients, you have the building blocks, repair. If you don't, oh, well, in an environment of there's no way to repair this, we start breaking it down more. That's why it's important. That's why this all makes sense. This whole thing makes sense with everything that Dr. Glidden has talked about with the minerals and everything that Béchamp has talked about with the GAN microzyma. And they can perceive or respond to a situation incorrectly at times because of what the feel of the situation is. They didn't read the room. They read the room wrong, type of deal. But if things are already diseased and broken up and the bacteria is going out to get them, but there's no assistance in the body to remove the toxins that are being created by the discharge of the bacteria, and it's just making things worse, and toxins are piling up. They'll send more of the shit out, of course, but at some point it's like, okay, now we're just breaking down the freaking tissue because everything's. How do you fix that? 90 essential nutrients, damn it. That's how you do that. And then it has enough that it needs. The environment changes from within because it's not a diseased environment now. It's a healthy environment, and they will build and rebuild. This is what microzymas do, man. He wrote in 1869, in typhoid fever, gangrene, and anthrax, the existence has been found of bacteria in the tissues and blood, and one was very much disposed to take them for granted as cases of ordinary parasitism. It is evident after what we have said that instead of maintaining that the affection he says affection, not infection, the affection has had as its origin and cause the introduction into the organism of foreign germs with their consequent action, one should affirm that one only has to deal with an alteration of the function of the microzymas, an alteration indicated by the change that has taken place in their form. So there you go. Can they turn on you? Well, kind of, yeah. If they're in an environment that, I'm not talking about I'm just talking about portions of your own body, right? The signal that you receive from things goes all the way through the body, but there's a spot in there where microzymas are reacting to something, and they're under the impression, let's say there's a big, huge thing of toxin, maybe somebody injects it with a needle, and you get a bunch of bullshit all at once. Well, they're going to respond to that, and if their environment is shit because of what happened, bigger catastrophic things might occur. But they weren't doing anything harmful to you before because everything was good. And if you want to try to put them back into that state of everything's good and it's supporting your life, then you got to make sure that you stay healthy and not get fucking injections. Yeah. This view coincides well with the modern view of all germs found in nature, except those in the body, which are still looked on as causing the conditions they are found with. Yeah, but it comes from within. Again, it still kills the virus idea. The signal or whatever, the disease breeds from within. You can get something introduced to your body, but typically your body is responding to something that is happening from within it. And it's the microzymas that are sending out the bacteria. I would have a hard time believing that any bacteria that you actually ingested would get past the gut if it was invasive and bad. Your liver, everything would trigger that this is a bad toxin, bad thing. Get rid of it. This view coincides well with the modern view of the germs found in nature, rather being conditions that are, let's see, still looked as causing conditions that are found with rather than being as the result of the conditions which their true relation. Okay, let's start over. This view coincides well with the modern view of all germs found in nature, except those in the body, which are still looked on as causing the conditions they are found with rather than being the result of these conditions, which is their true relation to them. Right. The Encyclopedia Britannica, and look, nothing's changed since this was published. It's now 103 years after, and they still suck because they don't want to know anything. Let's see. The common idea of bacteria in the minds of most people is that of a hidden and sinister scourge lying in wait for mankind. This popular conception is born of the fact that attention was first focused upon bacteria through the discovery some 70 years ago of the relationship of bacteria to disease in man, and that its infancy and the study of bacteriology was a branch of medical science. Relatively few people, this is from the Britannica, relatively few people assign to bacteria the important position in the world of living things that they rightly occupy, for it is only a few of the bacteria known today that have developed in such a way that they can live in the human body. And for every one of of this kind, there are scores of others which are perfectly harmless and far from being regarded as the enemies of mankind. Must be numbered among his best friends. They must be numbered among his best friends. Have we gone forward or backward in our knowledge since the time of this Britannica, which was, 60 years ago, 80 years ago? It is, in fact, no exaggeration to say that upon the activities of bacteria, the very existence of man depends. Indeed, without bacteria, there could be no other living thing in the world. Gee, does that mean that microzyma are kind of important to know? For every animal and plant owes its existence to the fertility of the soil, and this in turn depends upon the activity of microorganisms, that's correct, which inhabit the soil in almost inconceivable numbers. And what do? Pre-digestion of minerals so that your plant can suck them up. And they don't need them. They're making them for you because this is a really strange world that we live in. It's all symbiosis and nature likes us. Jews don't like us. Nature loves us. It is one of the main objects of this article to show how true is this statement. There will be found in it only passing reference to the organisms which produce disease in man and in animals. For information on these, see pathology and immunity. The writer of the above thoroughly understands germs or bacteria with only one exception. The bacteria found in man and animals do not cause disease. See? That's where they got it wrong. It's like, oh, look, all the ones that don't exist outside the body, that exist outside the body, those are harmless. But the ones inside our body, those ones that can, like, they think it's coming from somewhere else. They have the same function as those found in the soil or in sewage or elsewhere. They eat things. They transition things. Not like trannies. They have the same function as those found in the soil or in sewage or elsewhere in nature. They are there to rebuild dead or diseased tissues or rework body wastes, and it is well known that they will not or cannot attack healthy tissues. I don't have the minerals right here, but I would rather have pulled up the minerals and shown you healthy tissues. They are as important and necessary to human life as those found elsewhere in nature, and are in reality just as harmless if we live correctly, as Béchamp clearly showed. We determine what happens. We determine how the microzymas behave. If we treat our body like a toxic waste dump, eating all the bullshit and getting injections and taking pharmaceuticals, fucked up shit's gonna happen, and then you're gonna be like, oh, it's the disease, it's the virus, no. It's the microzymas, but they weren't your enemy. You mistreated them. Sorry, she's leaving now. She's taking all your shit. Silkworm disease, another steal. Okay, let me take a look here. It's been a while since I looked at the screens. For fuck's sake. 15 buttons to press. 2 hours. Guys, I appreciate all of you being here. Thank you for being here so late. That's pretty freaking awesome. You should have descended in a hot air balloon. It's now Fran Africa. Yes, it is. Ervat, you're correct. Oh, that's the AI. Get the AI thing from the Twitch every time. You want fake people to tell you how wonderful you are? No, I don't. I don't want to deceive anybody. Show up if you want it. Don't if you don't. Thank you, Twitch, for being a douche. Anyway, I can't believe there's nothing. Like, isn't there like a bar? Oh, no, there isn't. Right, you don't know it's on Twitch unless you're already following it, which means you have to have a schedule. Jesus Christ, that's gay. How do people get millions of dollars? I gotta find out. Charlie's kind of a liberal douchebag, though. I just realized there's a lot of things that he's said in the past that are, these people are Karens because they didn't wear a mask. I'm like, they're Karens because they refuse to wear a mask. Like, these people are just. I'm like, oh my god, now I know why you're popular, because you were talking bullshit in crisis time. No wonder you blew up, you fuck. You're supporting the narrative of the lie. Something I never could do, and that's why I was literally losing my YouTube channel during that time. I was deleted off of 2 other places. I got kicked off of Patreon once. All of this because talking about stuff like this and how it's important to not be deceived, so you don't die, so you don't get poisoned, so you don't live life incorrectly and not understand what you can do to continue that symbiosis, the symbiotic relationship with nature, with yourself, with the microzymas inside of you. And you can treat them like your friends, or you can piss and shit all over them and decide what they should do. And they'll decide what they should do to you, right? You're not just eating for you, you're eating for them. All right? Ask the microzyma what they want. Think about it, what you think that they would want, and then treat yourself better. And then take the 90 essential nutrients and use code BB5. Okay? So I didn't read this. Kabbalist blah, blah, blah of history is in need of some serious renovation. For over 150 years, we have been set backward, made stagnant, and fed a bunch of BS about how advanced we are. The reality is we have had vital knowledge and innovations erased, destroyed, discredited, and viciously assaulted by way of malicious laws. The hostile takeover by the Alapass, led by Rockefeller and Rothschild money, right? Rockefeller, the mechanism, Rothschild, the funder. We've seen patents disappear under the BS of national security, right? Because it is national security when you're the criminal demon who wants to parasitically prey upon its own people. Then anything that would liberate us and give us an edge would be totally national security, because those are, it's their security, it's their control, their power is what is being challenged or potentially threatened. They're not doing it for us; they're doing it for them, for the cowardly paranoid cult, the paranoid social cult instead of social club. There was a band. That means you are a prisoner and prey of the your. What the fuck did I say there? And prey of your occupying overlords, and they don't want you to be able to liberate yourself or become independent of their abusive rule. They are simply holding us in preparation for extermination. In the meantime, they have extorted us, exploited us, constantly poisoned us. They don't treat us very well. If we were the microzyma, in which we are, by the way, in this model of life, we are the microzyma. We are actually the ones in control. We're the ones in power. And we're being abused, and our environment is being turned into a dump. So we can choose to do a couple things here, right? Continue to take it and eat the shit. Or the organism would be the state in this situation. So do we, I don't know. You keep mistreating the microzyma, us being the microzyma. We take down that fucking state. We eat it. We eat it alive. Because it's rotten to the core anyway. And that type of tissue needs to be processed and transferred into something else. They are simply holding us, I said that, and constantly poisoned us and convinced us to go to war and murder those who would have otherwise been our natural allies against their demonic rule. And then I said something funny when it comes to fermentation, right? Garçon, more air in my B&B. Like Airbnb. Yeah. recognizing the brilliance in others, and when I can't help but recognize the not so brilliant, the lunatics, and the deceivers, I report on it. And I also said puzzles are fun when their solutions lead to meaningful, useful discovery, or rather a recovery of lost shit, right? Isn't it great what AI can do? It can be even more retarded than usual. What is that supposed to be? Marjorie Taylor Greene getting punched? I don't know. And then hit this fucking piece of shit here laughing. These people who have huge platforms are all assholes. They're all degenerates. Some dress up like conservatives, others dress up like the liberal crazies. They're both fucking deceiving and being pieces of shit and smug about it. What else do we see here? Q-proof. Good God. This is the only one that was interesting so far. It says spellcasting. Language, word spells, symbols, image spells. Yes, all symbols have an energy. Everything has a frequency. But you have to realize it's not two-dimensional. And it's also not just coming in linear, right? Something that has an energy. It's like an orb around it. Like it's transmitting it from all directions. It's not just straightforward. Always be a critical drinker. Oh, thinker. Yes, good. Yes, sir. That was a rot. We peaked in the 90s. He has JD Vance on. I guess, dude. Well, hold on a second. If you, this can't be real. We've never seen him without the beanie, but Jesus Christ, is Tim Pool Vance DeGeneres, JD Vance, when he takes the fucking thing off finally? No way. Just kidding. Seems like it though. Jesus. Both are retards and degenerates. Anyway, you guys have a wonderful night. Oh, forgot the most important part. All right. So, please do me this favor. Damn it. Wink. Go to this channel. Click it. All right. Are you the other? Subscribe. And then watch this video and share it someplace or every place on your social media. And if you follow fitness channels for whatever reason, I do. Share it wherever those people congregate. Share this freaking link. This is super freaking important. And yes, I want views. I'm not going to lie. I want this thing to take off. I want this to be my new thing. I want this to be the biggest thing of the things that I fuck around with. Okay. This video took a long, many hours to make. Now, I'm my own team, so that's part of it. The other part is when you come up with ideas, you don't have prepared clips or a clip library already. So you got to go find this stuff as you think about it. And like, oh, this would be good. Yeah, that'd be great. Oh, geez. Oh, that's funny. Let me think of this. I got to go grab that image. So that all takes time. And then I have to cut out all the bullshit in my monologue to make it more fluid. And then it's presented, rendering on this computer super fast. Thanks, guys, for that, by the way. I think that my Gifts and Go might be disabled. I think they may have tried to do something with it recently, and now it says something about need to connect with bank. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You send me stuff via... You don't... What? My bank was never attached to it. It was always the PayPal. So what are they talking about? I don't know. I don't know if the Gifts and Go is broken or not. No one's done anything on it recently, so I don't know if that's true. But you can come here. And this is the buy me a coffee. Did anybody put it in the chat tonight? Copy. Was this you recently? Was this you? Wait, did that just happen? I don't see the date. Let's see. Time. Oh, 4:04. What the hell? I just got errored. I thought they usually tell you the day. The time. Hold on, let me take a look. Thank you very much, Edward. Thank you. I'm not seeing the thing either. Hey, look. My mom sent me a picture of my daughter, and her when they were little, and they look very, very close together. That's very, very. They look like a lot. That's kind of cool. It's very cool. Let me see. I gotta figure. I don't know where anything is on this thing anymore. Yes, that was N-word from yesterday, because it says yesterday because it's, yeah, that makes more sense because it's trans. What? Sunday, August 2nd. Yeah, 9:35 p.m. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very, very much. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. Holy crap. Thank you, sir. I think that was before I came on, right? That was very good of you. I'm glad to have made the contacts that I have doing the show, and I'll continue doing it. But please humor me. This is a really good video. It took a long time. It really is a public service. It is a consumer safety warning. It does discuss a lot of really important things that if people are venturing down the temptation path to try to shortcut their fitness and they end up with this, they might not end up with children or deformed ones or testicular cancer or some other infertility and a horrible life of needing TRT forever, which might be is that the end goal? Making everybody have to take TRT because Coach Greg has to take TRT? I don't know. I don't think he's that vindictive. But this shit comes from Mount Hermon. So where do you think he's buying it from? Think he's buying it from Lebanon and Syria? Or do you think he's buying it from the Golan Heights fuckers? The Jews. That's all I'm saying. And you know that they have a plot. And wouldn't they love to make everybody infertile? And that's a really passive reset, right? And nobody can have children anymore. all the strongest, because the ones that are striving for bigger muscles are the ones that all get sterilized. That's a weasel move, isn't it? So anyway, I don't fault Greg for it, but if he discovers this information that I am presenting to him for that very purpose, of presenting to social media for that very purpose, that hopefully it gets to him, and he doesn't act on it, and he doesn't make changes to this product, it's going to harm people. Period. The end. It's going to harm people severely. And maybe a 10 billionaire or a deca billionaire can deal with that. He can live with it comfortably and continue to live his life until potential things come after him. You know what I mean? Like, he'll ruin his reputation. His business will probably not be able to sell anything anymore because nobody will buy anything anymore after something like that kind of controversy. He'll lose a lot of stuff. He might lose his way of life over time. And if he gets sued, then maybe quicker. So as a public service to him too, he should watch the video and understand what I'm getting at is not it's not a tear down or a takedown of him. It's a warning because, hey, when somebody's doing something dangerous and you don't tell them anything, it's because you don't care about them. All right? You see, so you wouldn't care about the people who took the supplement, and you wouldn't care about the person who might be putting themselves on the line to harm themselves. I mean, to put themselves in a position of liability where they could get sued. It means that you don't care about anything. Now, you don't care about regular people who would take it, and you wouldn't care about the person who might not know that they're harming people. Well, if I don't say anything, then who the hell fucking is? No one has yet. This Ferula Max information that I presented, I guarantee will be stolen by others before people will actually look at my video. And they're not even going to clip it out. They'll just farm the fucking information. Trust me, that's how it works. They don't want anybody. It's a gatekeeping process. So please follow the channel, share the video, make it a grassroots movement. This is the video I'm talking about right here. Ferula Max honest analysis and consumer safety warning must watch. Please, please, please do that for me. This video is super important, as I have stated. And I love this fucking channel. I don't care if it only has 25 subscribers. What do you mean only? 25 awesome people because I know a lot of you guys did it because I asked you to, and I appreciate that. I also noticed that no one else has yet. So don't put it off. Don't put it off, please. Thanks. Mount Herman. Yep. Kiki Netanyahu. Hermo. Yeah, I always just say that like Hermo instead of homo. You're one of those hermos. You're one of those hermos. All right, so that was that, the YouTube channel. Go there. There's a Rumble one just like it, but I want the YouTube thing to pick up. Right now it is. Right now it's more than the Rumble channel. I get more views on the Rumble. I get more followers on YouTube. But that's where I want you to go. Buy me a coffee link. I think I didn't put it in here. I don't know if it's on the top chat or not. Let me go ahead and do that. Right click, copy. Oh, and Edward, if you're not already in our Telegram group and you want to be, that way you can. Karen's in there and Dr. Monzo and other decent people. If you wanted to go in there, just find. I think it's just at Ballbusters or Ballbuster Studios or something like that. I don't know. You'll find it. And then I just have to accept your inquiry or whatever. That way I can send a message to people that show up to the show and let them know stuff. Because I know if I go into the groups, it's like Alex is in there, Alex Waslack. And if I don't get everybody that is like the core group, then some people aren't going to know if something comes up or if I'm going to be an hour late or something like that. I don't want to make people wait. Let's see. And then also, the Patreon's there. Leave Big Farm behind, Dr. Liddon. You can use Ballbusters or Fitwit for the 25% off. Dude, I've been watching a video a day, at least, of Dr. Liddon's. And I'm still learning stuff. It's great. It's good. It's great, especially on the foundation of this microzyma stuff, because I can see a process being explained one way, and then the parts where they say we don't know how this mechanism works. And I'm like, I think I do because there's a guy that came before me who was pretty freaking brilliant, and his name was Béchamp, and he discovered something about human life in life in general that is so freaking monumental, and nobody even fucking recognized what he was talking about. Somewhat by design, mostly by design. And then code BB5 for 90 essential nutrients, Azure Standard right there. I made a little short thing that just quick, and I'm going to load that up on the OBS so I can just hit a play button so I don't have to say it every single time. The Azure Whole Food Essential Nutrients are whole food multivitamin, Alaskan cod liver oil, fulvic humic energy blend, and the IP6 Supreme with inositol. 3 of which I have here. Oh, and the core copper. 3 of which I have here. And Parmesan cheese from my daughter. And code BB5, Bravo 5. You click this bitch right here, and you can use it for anything on the site, but the 90 essentials are comprised of this. Okay. This. Where is that? This. Got me scared there for a second. And this. And I go with the powder on this one. And then also, if you want special, extra credit or whatever, you can. There's some bentonite clay there too. Some people like that. I have bentonite clay somewhere in the house. I haven't used it before, but it's here. Core copper, boom. That's the extra credit. And then there's pure collagen, bam. Those go together. I'm learning as I go. So core copper and the pure collagen. That'll really. Forgot the name of the whatever. Something that helps with the elastin to make it super strong, super strong. All right, now we go. Good night, everybody. Guten Nighten, as they say.